All right, well, welcome all. Thank you for coming tonight. We'll probably have some other people showing up as they figure out where we're at. But the important people are here, so thank you for that.
I'm not sure if it's recording.
Okay, so it says stop share, screen sharing.
Okay, it's recording.
Okay, here we go. So you all should have received the email from me about the meeting. Did anyone not get the email? Okay, that's good. So we're gathering those there. If I don't have it, make sure I get it. That's the best way for us to communicate with you and for you to communicate with us so that we can pass on questions or answer questions for you. How many people got the newsletter about 2 weeks ago that Alan did? Okay. Is there anyone that did not get the newsletter? Sure. Okay, I'm not sure, but that could be in amongst all the other mail. I know how it can be. That was really good numbers. But thank you, Marilee, for sending those out. I believe that's about 300 mailing addresses that.
Well, and it's on green paper.
And green, yes, yes.
But it would have cost us $3,200.
It would cost us a lot of money. So that is a huge benefit to us. It also reaches people that we don't have their email address for so that they can hear about what's going on as well. So, and thank you obviously to Alan for putting that together.
Well, I asked for 200 and she gave us 3,000.
Nice. Nice. Cool.
That's a printer for you.
Yeah. Cool. So a lot of things are happening in the county right now. If you're not aware, we are in the process of the comp plan. We talked about that in December, pieces of that. That comp plan finishes up in June of 2025. So we're about midway through right now. There's been a lot of work that's going on with that. There are hearings on the vacant buildable lands model right now that is looking at all of the lands around the cities and the county itself as to what is vacant, what is buildable, and all of it. So that becomes potential resource land for building homes. If you remember, the county council adopted a projection for population, thank you, of 700 and about 70 or 80,000 people. We're just under 500,000 right now. There's a 20-year plan, so by 2045. And so they also then projected how many housing units those are, and I don't have that off the top of my head, but that's going to require obviously a fair amount of land to do that. And so the vacant buildable lands model is going to feed into that as to what is available to be developed. Certainly, if that land is restricted and the price is driven up, if you have that land, you will probably make a lot of money on it. But it just drives the cost of housing up for everybody then, because all of our assessments are based on those new assessments as well. If the price is, if there's too much land, then the cost of providing infrastructure for that land is pretty expensive, and so it costs us again on either side. So there is a happy medium on that. Hopefully the projection is reasonably close. So be watching those kinds of things. With that, we have our agenda up front. I did email that out. I did email out the minutes as well. There are minutes over on the table if you want to take a copy of those. So I'm going to ask if there is an approval for our December minutes, or if there are any changes. That's what it is. Is there any changes to our December minutes? Anyone has? And thank you, Ann, for taking those minutes.
I move we approve the minutes.
Okay. It's moved and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. We've projected a agenda for you of things that we have prepared for you. Is there anything that needs to be changed or added to that agenda that anyone has? Hearing none, we will let the meeting agenda stand. And with that, I am going to turn it over to our wonderful Vice President, Jared, for his comments.
You don't know me that well. Hello and welcome, everyone. We've been around a while. I'm pretty new, but first takeaways is I think our meetings can be run a little tighter. I want to hear from as many people as possible. I think that's why people attend, is because they have something to hopefully share. It's not just they will have something to say. So that means that we have to make sure that we're limiting some time constraints on speech. And this goes for everyone, even our presenters. I loved our guest speakers last time, but I think a few of them ran a little long on some topics. So I'm here now to encourage the pace as your vice president. That's what I'll be adding to the meetings. I have these wonderful sand timers. That's my 5-minute timer. So I'm gonna dominate that timer on my 5 minutes here. Don't worry about it, people. We're pretty much already done. But I will be keeping a log, and generally, if somebody has used up a fair amount of time, I'm going to be allowing them less time each time they go to speak moving forward, just so we keep things tight. And again, the goal is to then be able to cover everything and then circle back and have a fair amount of open discussion time, because I don't want that time to be limited and that time to be cut. Again, you're all here for a reason, and you might have something you want to say, so we want to hear it. That's very important. So don't mind me. I'm the time management czar. That's my accepted title moving forward. I don't believe the sheriff is here.
Yeah, so the sheriff was going to present tonight, and we were looking forward to that, but they are having an award ceremony tonight that has taken a lot of them off the ability to come and do this. So if you want to get speeding on the way home, you might have a free time doing that. Just saying. So yeah, we will fill in again for next month, and hopefully we can, or next meeting, and pick that one up. So
Okay.
let's move into the PNA emergency.
Great. I get to keep talking. That's
Yes.
what that means. Are you? Oh, okay.
Marilee is in control of the.
Oh, yes, and we said it earlier, but this is being recorded, so mind your P's and Q's. It will be up on YouTube, so keep it civil and appropriate. All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about emergency preparation. As I get older, I get more anxious, and we live in an interesting area that exhibits a lot of interesting safety-related issues, and I kind of want my neighbors, if you don't already take time to think about how you will act in emergency situations, to start thinking about it. So for those of you, I mean, this is going to be very topical because we're all at different places with our emergency preparation, and we're all at different levels of concerns with the dangers around us. But if you are interested in being off grid generally, you can start taking some steps now that will then also be helpful in the case of emergency, because if we face emergencies, they'll likely be infrastructure related. So we're going to lose power, we're going to lose our cell phones, and we're going to lose generally our ability to communicate with even landlines, because a lot of those are based off the internet these days. So you now have no power, no ability to communicate, and for some people that may be life-threatening within 24 hours. I know my wife works in the field of kidney dialysis, and those individuals need to make it there 3 times a week. So even inclement weather can be a major issue. So a plan is necessary. So some things I've done on my own, my well water, I have a generator, a 240 generator that I specially wired it. So if I need to pressurize my tank, I can plug it straight into a generator. Wasn't the most complicated thing to do, but obviously water will be essential. And for me, if I lose power, I lose water. That goes for my septic tank as well, because I have a septic. So a little backup generator for that also. Heat, wood, propane, those logical stocking that you can do on all your major heating sources. If you don't have, I would say at least a month's worth of heat, it's concerning. You should have some sort of plan about how to heat your home for at least 4 weeks. Food next, 2 weeks of unspoilable food reserves. I think some things that people take for granted is their frozen food that they plan on depending on in a long-term emergency situation. But depending on the time of year, it may not be frozen for very long. So that's another one. If you are looking to have a generator type system, it would be good if you could get, say, a bench freezer powered by your generator as well, so you can elongate that. Next, communication.
Wait, let me
You doing okay?
jump in.
Oh,
Yeah, you're doing great.
You jump
You
in.
can turn the timer
It's
over.
been like 6 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm doing great.
One of the things that we want to do is make sure that we as neighbors are relatively prepared. Why? Because if Jared's the only one prepared here and we all run to his house, first we might not be welcome, but that's not gonna, you don't have enough for all of us, right? All 3,000 houses and all. So the best way that we as neighbors can prepare is to make sure that we ourselves are prepared, and that's really the key to this. Now, there may be able to be some sharing of some things that could happen, but you kind of need to have stocks to be able to do that. I bought I don't know, 100 boxes of matches of the kitchen matches, just for trading stock or whatever. Those are really, really handy if you don't have anything like that, and stuff. So yeah, so this is to help prepare us all so that our neighborhood can survive.
Yes, it's unfortunate, but you can't help but consume all the weird things they talk about. And apparently they're telling us a solar flare is going to knock out all of our small electronics. So that's the boogeyman now. That or they're going to shoot down our satellites. We won't have our cell phones. So again, just we've got to be ready for these crazy things. So the communication is going to be really important. And we haven't, again, we're still in our infancy here, but I would like at least to have a bandwidth frequency we all know we can kind of turn to if we do lose communication, so we can at least talk to our neighbors. These things are pretty cool. These pronounce excuse me on it, Baofeng, these ham radios, they're not much money. I won't comment on the legality of unlocking them, but they are easy to unlock, and they give you access to all sorts of frequencies that I won't comment on any of the legality of using any of those frequencies, but
Let me help you out there,
in an emergency.
because we use these at our houses, and they're about $25 a piece, so they're pretty inexpensive. But the family radio bands require no license, so you still have a pretty powerful radio on some of those bands that you can use without breaking the law. And if everything goes in the crapper, nobody cares about the license piece. So yeah.
Yes.
Take a ham radio class to operate.
If you're going to use it on those ham ones, yes,
Yes.
I've tried to take that class.
yeah.
It's very difficult.
They've made it easier recently. There's an easier version. You can operate those on the non-ham bands.
Yes.
Without a license.
Non-ham bands. Can't cross the ham line. Oh yeah, that's another one that's been mentioned. A small power supply or uninterrupted power supply for your internet, for your router. Last time, it's actually pretty interesting when the power goes out, the internet's still there. So you just have to get your router powered, and then you still have access to that. So yeah, a decent wattage, uninterruptible.
We got you.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
UPS.
Next slide. Oh yeah, absolutely.
You can run a router with an inverter on a car battery.
Absolutely. Yes, that is why I did not want to buy an electric car, but I did because batteries are really expensive. So my logic was if I wanted a giant. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But yes, that is my backup generator. Battery bank is my car. Okay, so then next we got these things called the potential of wildfires that I don't know, kind of keeps me up at night. So I think it's pretty important to identify that we don't have very many intersections out of our little community here. So this is just a map with, I believe I hit it right. That is the boundary line that's identifying the 7 intersections out of our area, because you can't really go east, especially if that's where the fire is. We will be likely going west, south, and north. So I just thought it was important to identify that if something's happening, and let's say we hear about fires spreading across a specific key road, you got to know that there's only so many other ways out. Yes.
So you're talking about emergency prep.
Yes, I am.
So you're talking about emergency prep actually in 2 senses. One is where you have to hunker down,
Yes.
right? And the other is where you have to leave.
Yes.
And so those actually have 2 really different kinds of requirements, because
Absolutely.
I just remember when we were evacuating for the Ikea Creek fire, and one of the really crucial things was people trying to find horse trailers so they could remove their animals. You know, that's extremely important to know. And you know, things like go bags and knowing these kinds of routes, because some routes may be blocked because of the wildfire, or because of emergency vehicles, or for whatever kinds of reasons. So it's like it's a double tree.
Mhm.
If this, then that. But
Yes.
if you have to bug out, you know, you better have a go bag. You better know where your passport is. I mean, there are a whole variety of things that you take into account.
Yes, and for me, they are separate, and yet Maui's been something on my radar, that's very prominent given the potential for fire given our area. So for them, how I see it as related is they lost their communications. They lost their power. So there was a danger, but they didn't know about it. So to me, these are related in that even if you can only supply power to your home for 2 days, you might just need power to your home for 4 hours just to get a message in that you need to go. So for me, it's entirely related. I don't think realize how dependent we are on our tools until they're gone. And at this point, I think we're wholly dependent on our tools. So it's something that whatever is thrown our way, it needs to be unfortunately considered. I'm on for my employment, I'm on the emergency response team and safety committee. I've been through their incident command classes, and most of this is just about doing some practice so that when it happens, you can go a little more smoothly than it being totally chaotic. And that little bit of smoothness might be the difference for making it out and not making it out. So it's not enjoyable to think about, but you're identifying exactly the right thing. You got to be ready for both. I think for us, I mean, literally on my property, it's flood, gotta go. It's fire, gotta go. Or else it's stormed in, gotta stay. And then if it's loss of power, I need to find out why.
Earthquake?
Yeah, potentially earthquake as well. That's a little lower for me. It's not going to keep me up at night as much unless it brings my trees down.
Yeah.
And even windstorms, there's a potential that there's a lot of big trees by my house, so I might need to be ready to go in an instant in that category as well. Yes.
I've been through the human training as well, and it's
No, absolutely. Pass the mic.
We got people on,
What?
we got people on the mic, so.
Anyway, I've been through the FEMA training and incident command as well, through measles and then through COVID. Also, I did go through CERT training. That is an opportunity as well for folks in the public who can be boots on the ground, helpful to their neighbors. I don't know if anyone else in this group is CERT trained. They would not have released that information to me as far as working together with folks in my my area of the county for privacy reasons. It would be good to know if we do have folks in the area who are searching, that they do have that option. It's a very minimal cost to take the class. I think it was $35 and 12 weeks, I think, or something.
Mhm.
with the classes. But anyway, it does help you prepare for catastrophes.
Thank you. So generally, the main purpose of me speaking tonight is, I'm trying to, for those that are interested, open up more of a dialogue. Try and make a local resource on some of these topics and make it so we're communicating as neighbors and we can watch each other's backs. Because, yeah, I think that's, why else am I here? So,
Well, and I'm putting this up here. I'm putting in a plug for signing up for this. Apparently, there's only 33,000 people in the Clark County area that are signed up for the alert system through Clark County. You just need to go to cressa911.org and you click on this sign up for alerts and fill in your information with your cell phone number. And that helped a lot of the people get out with the Jenny Creek fires because they got an automatic information right on their cell phone that told them when they needed to get out. You can put in what your area code is, and it tells you what's happening in your area code. And if there's an evacuation in your area code, and that would be really important in your area with the fires in your area.
Good point. Yes.
I also have the Red Cross app on my phone. There's been a lot of emergency alert off of them, especially about weather. So I don't know if that's another thing that people may want to tap into.
Absolutely, yeah.
The purpose is for us to share ideas and resources and all. One of the things we thought about doing, since the church here has been really generous in letting us meet here, is if communication goes down, is to kind of set some sort of a standard time that someone would be here with information to share information or to gather information from people in the different parts of the neighborhood, because our neighborhood is the biggest one, I think, in county, largest as far as size wise.
Geographical wise.
Yeah. So so that something like that we may be formalizing as well.
I have scanned all my important documents and they're all on jump drives right next to my computer. So if I'm not old, I told my wife, don't worry about getting the computers, just grab those 5 or 6 jump drives and go.
Great idea.
and that's my 15 minutes.
Okay. Yep. While we're on that topic, is there any other thoughts or questions or comments? Anyone online? You can put your comments in chat if you like, and Marilee will let us know. Yeah, over here.
Yeah, hi, I'm on the conservation district email list, and I just got an email today saying that now they're gonna begin to offer wildfire mitigation consulting to people. So check out Clark Conservation District. Check it out.
Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for that, Jared. So next up is the Camp Bonneville update. We've got at least a couple of members of the Camp Bonneville Advisory Committee. And so we knew that there was going to be a meeting before this one, and there wasn't one last week. So we thought it would be a good chance to give a brief update to people and maybe answer some questions on that. So, and yeah.
The advisory committee met once in August. And we've had, right after Thanksgiving, a brief tour of the property. I think we talked about that last time. And we met again last week. There was another briefing by staff. And the committee is still struggling with procedural issues. So there's actually not a whole lot to report on yet. One of the things I'm interested in though is what questions you all may have about Camp Bonneville. The work of the committee is focused exclusively on the cleaning and just on that piece. And so, for example, if you have questions about wildfire risk at Camp Bonneville, that's not within the purview of this particular committee. So, yes.
So when you say cleanup, does that mean both the groundwater issue as well as the potential for an exposed ordinance, or are those separate issues?
So yes, anything that were either munitions or explosives of concern, as they call them, unexploded ordnance, and any contaminants that were. So those are the things that are within our purview. So
Including landfill and water.
yeah, landfill and water. So groundwater is the structures, and that sort of thing. So yes.
So does that, I muted myself. So does that mean there's gonna be like a next step after cleanup and there's gonna be another committee? Is that what the implication is?
So we were designated as a limited term committee, and that's fine. It's certainly appropriate for the task at hand. There was a presentation by staff to council in January, and the discussion among council is, I think they were, at least some of the councilors were imagining that it would be appropriate for there to be a special permanently seated Camp Bonneville advisory group or committee of some sort going forward, just because of the unique problems and opportunities associated and challenges, really challenges associated with that property, as opposed to having it in the purview of parks, for example, or in the purview of other kinds of properties that the county may have. So, yeah.
Yeah, and the committee is really a fact-finding committee, because there's just thousands and thousands of pages of documents that go back 30 and 40 years about Camp Bonneville. And I think what the account manager and the council wants is for us to sift through all that and get them the best truth that we can sort out and sift out from all that. And there's a lot of, what did Ann call them, omissions, discrepancies, and assumptions, or something like that. So we just have to wade through all that and just get to the truth of the cleanup and what's been done, what might need to be done, but just get basic facts and get it to the council. Because it's their decision, what to do, but they need, it's the best info we can get them.
Yeah, so for example, my husband Greg, and I've done some of this, have put in leverage requests for lots and lots and lots of documents related to the cleanup, since it was designated as a surplus army facility, so called the BRAC Center. So it was going to be put back in the ownership of it would revert to someone else, either public agency or the conservation group, all sorts of things. So we spent the afternoon reviewing documents. We literally have thousands and thousands of them. And we found one from 2004 today that is some of the planning behind what would be involved with the cleanup in that phase, what the laws were at that time, what the Army was responsible for doing. And it contained a whole series of really useful items. So there's a lot of information that we're trying to sort through, share with the committee, make sure that the committee is aware of that information, so we can provide the most cogent information possible to the county manager and the county council as they go forward. So
You probably all know this, but how many acres are we talking about that they're trying to clear right now?
well, right now they're not clearing anything.
I meant,
But
Make
the
sense,
total
yeah.
the total footprint of the site, the total footprint is a little over 3,800 acres. 3,840. Okay. And somewhere around 900 acres have been touched in one way or another for clearing. So about 75% of the property has never been looked at, and will never be looked at. So, that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah.
And then there are a lot of other details and information contained in those records that show us, what they did, where they did it, what they found, what further actions they were planning or not planning to take, et cetera, so.
Oh, yeah.
Two questions. One is, when you say,
There you go, good.
I'm pretty loud though.
That's okay. The poor people on TV.
So you say landfill, you mean there's no dumping on the property?
Yeah.
When they keep saying landfill, I'm confused by
So-
what you mean by landfill.
So yes, there was no dumping on the property except for when the Army owned it.
A long, long time ago.
Up until 1995,
A long, long time ago.
and for 100 years, the Army
But
was,
there's no more
there's no.
contaminating of water or things that are getting worse and worse.
There's-
Everything's
So there is no,
status quo.
there is no current landfill activity going on actively. That
Correct.
is correct. However, there is still contaminated groundwater.
But
Contaminated,
it's not getting any worse. It's,
well,
I mean.
so I would have to add, so there is quarterly testing going on, and we do know that the contamination is still there. There are still questions about, and again, I'm not the right person to ask, but my husband is the person to ask. But there's still some questions about whether or not that contamination is moving. At the beginning of this month, the Department of Ecology sponsored a training session for the Model Control Toxic Control Act, MOCTA it's called, right? And the cleanup at Camp Bonneville was overseen and done under those state statutes. Okay. And so in the course of that training, I had an opportunity to ask ecology experts and other experts a few questions. So one of the things I asked them about, for example, was there is still contamination in the groundwater because of landfill flow. They're continuing to monitor it, but it turns out there are actual measures you can take to try and degrade those contaminants, and those steps aren't being taken. So, so one of the questions that we can then pose back to ecology is, is it possible to ask to have that done? I'm not an expert in it, but it was really clear from talking to the experts that, in fact, there are measures that can be taken to help degrade some of those contaminants. So that's an important thing to know, and a good question to ask about. Isn't that being done, and why is it?
What was your second question?
Well, the second one is there's no future plans right now. Moving forward with Camp Bonneville, other than target practicing, which we hear all the time, and we don't care, that's fine. People need to practice, that's good for the agencies. That is, it's not.
That's true. So the only people who have access to the camp right now are county staff.
Right.
Who are responsible for the property. Sheriff's office and the FBI use it. There are currently no actual agreements between the county and those agencies.
Well, they're not also just using it for target practice.
Yeah, yes,
By the way.
yes, and so, yes, there are some other issues related to that.
Well,
but I
we've
won't
got-
get into it.
We've got brand new side-by-sides running up the hill right next to our property with officers on them and,
So what part of the camp are you located in?
well, I'm not gonna go into that.
No, but I mean,
I'm really not, because I'm not, but there's more than just target practice. We're
Oh, yes.
fine with target practice. Maybe not 8 o'clock Sunday morning, am I okay with target practice, but the taking it to the next level and using it as their private backyard can be a little irritating.
I agree.
So anyways,
Thank you.
Thank you.
This can go on and on, but who are the final regulatory authorities who at some point in the distant future decide what happens there, when it's safe, and who basically are we looking to make those decisions?
So as you can imagine, that's a complicated question.
Like most.
The property was transferred from the Army to Clark County under a consent decree. But But there are also deed restrictions on the property, restrictions that the Army has placed on it, knowing that in fact there was unexploded ordnance, other kinds of contaminants on the site. And that's part of what then governs the kinds of activities that can take place on the site. So that's certainly part of it. There are requirements as a result of the cleanup for certain kinds of oversight. So there are 5-year reviews and annual reviews of areas that were cleaned up to check and see if any more contaminants have come to the surface, if there are any more UXO that have come to the surface, those kinds of things. So that's usually for the state of Washington under the Department of Ecology, under this MOCTA legislation. So it will always be subject to oversight, jurisdictional oversight from the Department of Ecology that the county will be responsible for. So, you know, the county then thus carries certain liabilities to the public because of what remains on the site, but also has certain financial liabilities as well to be able to carry out these perpetual kinds of inspections and reviews and those sorts of things.
And just to follow up on that, before ecology can sign off, part of the process is this public participation piece with the advisory group that's meeting now for the public to look into all of the cleanup that has happened and validate it or bring up issues that still maybe got overlooked or not as much attention as they should. So, and that's still Department of Ecology. Yeah.
Last one for me. So is it fair to say there's a level of disagreement about the environmental status, cleanup status on the property between various state, county, and citizens groups?
Well, I wouldn't see the level of disagreement is between citizen groups and the county or the state. I would say it's between the EPA and the state. Yes. So under the transferred military properties under BRAC, EPA had a memo of understanding with the various military services to oversee environmental cleanup at these various sites. But in 2003, EPA pulled out of that relationship for Camp Bonneville because ecology wanted to be the lead agency. The State Department of Ecology wanted to be the lead agency. Though the cleanup standards are similar between the state and the federal agency and EPA, they're not quite the same. And the Department of Ecology does a really excellent job. It's really clear from this little bit of training that I had through the course. They are really focused on and do a really good job of things like cleaning up oil tanks. So they're really focused on dry cleaners and petroleum products. That is their thing, and they are very attentive to that. They have very limited any expertise on of those kinds of things at a site like this. So there still are disagreements between the EPA and the Department of Ecology. The standards on what should be done. The ecology has asserted itself as a lead agency and oversight. So.
I'm wondering if ecology has done anything of the water. What is really affecting? Is it affecting wells in the area? Has anybody in the area tested their well to see if any of that data matches with ecology is? They're not making it.
So that's a really good question. There is quarterly water monitoring on a series of wells that are on the property. To my knowledge, and again, I'm not quite the right person to ask because my husband actually has had it, so understand. I don't know that there are any private wells that are being monitored on the property. I think there are know that the contamination is still there. Questions are whether or not the plume of contamination has moved. And again, my husband would have his head around that. I expect that.
Let me jump on that because I remember the question being asked. I think Greg was there too, and the county made some mention of it, but there's some wells out around the perimeter of the property, and those have been cleaned thus far, at least reasonably not too long ago. But around that Bonneville 4 area, it's still a lot of that water is contaminated. It has some clay supposedly that kind of is locking it in place. Hopefully that will maintain itself for a long time, but we'll see. But there are other wells around that supposedly have been cleaned, so it doesn't seem to have moved off of the property yet.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah.
That's important to know. It's also important to know that the levels of the fluorides and ODX, the key things that we're really concerned about, have remained steady for decades. So those contaminants are not degrading, they're still there.
And while you're going that way for this gentleman's question about that, they did not remove all of the contaminated stuff from the site for the landfill area. They did it in one area and trucked it all off and disposed of it. But some of the others, because of the geology, I guess that's what it is, chose to leave it in place and cover it and do whatever because it was
Something I want to mention, test your water.
Yeah.
You can get testing for free. So it doesn't make sense not to test
Well,
that once a year.
except that testing is quite a bit more expensive when you're testing for
No,
those
your
things.
personal well.
Right, I get that.
Test your personal well.
Yes, but for testing for those specific chemicals, I understand it's fairly expensive to have those particular tests done. So test it for bacteria and all the other stuff that you need to do. Yeah, do that and all. But don't just tell them, hey, I want this tested for that. You might be looking at, $1,000 bill. So
We had some online questions. Marilee, do you feel they were, did you?
Venom?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer to them. I'm gonna be getting the answer to them tomorrow and we'll get it to Kirk and Kirk can distribute it. Wendy was wanting to know who the contact was for the county and DNR contacts were for wildfires. And so Rocky Houston is gonna get that information to me and I will get it to Kirk and Jared and then it can go out on the email list tomorrow.
And we also had a question. There's a fire helicopter. Is it still in use?
So I'm certainly not the definitive thing. Yet it is my understanding that in the last year or two, the council signed a multi-year agreement to allow a DNR helicopter to be staged out of Camp Bonneville.
For 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, during the wildfire season. I think it's a small helicopter, so I think it's a spotting helicopter. I don't think that they have the capacity to carry water. And one of my neighbors is a helicopter pilot, so he thinks that they can't carry a lot of water.
Looks
They
like,
sent something out 2 years ago that said they were putting a firefighting helicopter on the property.
Like it's an annual agreement.
Annual agreements.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, I believe that's the case. It's also the case that there is no specific plan to fight wildfires at Camp Bonneville yet. There's no coordinated plan between DNR and local fire brigades, which I think is perhaps a problem. So, in my opinion, it would be awful nice if the council would say to DNR, hey, listen, sure, helicopter's great, but let's get the fire plan done first. I think that's something that would be really important for protecting our neighborhoods.
And the Larch Mountain Correction Facility shut down this last September too, which was a primary firefighting brigade, there you go, for our area, for Pacific Northwest, but they were certainly helpful for our stuff, as well. So they're gone now to Longview, I believe, so.
That's
Cool. Any other questions? Alan, why don't you talk to him about just kind of what forms you got, to review for the, advisory committee?
Well,
Just to give them an idea.
a lot of these documents are pretty complicated. One's called the amended prospective purchaser consent decree, which is a legal, it's a legal document. And some of the stuff that we got from, old Army documents and Department of Ecology documents, I'm not a munitions expert or a scientist, and so some of the stuff is pretty dense. But there's just a lot of information there's lots and lots of information out there, and just ferreting through, it and getting the best information for the council is, I can see it taking several more meetings, but the most recent meeting was the best meeting. And we started to make some progress on it, and so I'm optimistic, and the county's also, they got a brush cutter now, they're gonna do, they're not deaf to the concerns that we have about wildfire. And it takes time with government, but they're making some moves.
And so it's very clear the purpose of the CAG is not to bring up the wildfires. It's
right.
So I don't know why I'm asking you specifically, but for me, if I care about it too, what should I be doing to encourage action?
So, wildfire is probably the single greatest concern coming out of Camp Bonneville, just because of the complications of that site. And I think if you're concerned about it, write to your counselor, write to Gary Remigi, write to the council, write to Kathleen Otto, who is the county manager. Just, share your concerns, share your opinions, share your ideas. I think, there's a certain, the squeaky wheel it's paid attention to. And I think, the residents have been asking about this for over 6 years. We still don't have a wildfire fighting plan out of, for Camp Bonneville. Commissioner Hillary Franz was here in January to talk about wildfire risks. It's a severe risk statewide now. And then we have the added complication. So I think if you're concerned about it, write to Councilor Medvigi, write to the county manager.
But the advisory committee that's not their issue, as you said. So yeah, absolutely. Good. Any other questions for the advisory committee? Anything that you would like brought up at their next meeting? Cool. Okay. I think that brings us then.
Yes, and we did it in under 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Timekeeper.
Success so far.
Sweating here. So the Salachi Railroad, you're all probably familiar with it, runs all the way from Vancouver to Salachi Prairie at the kind of northeast corner of our county. Actually might even go into Skamania County a little bit. The Greater Brush Prairie Neighborhood Association, which has a fair amount of interest in that development of that railroad and some concerns, did put together a letter that they took to the Neighborhood Associations Council and asked for support on that. I did email that out to you, and I printed it out as well. And
They're gone.
they're gone. Okay. Yeah, please. That's what I was looking for. So if you read through that and looked at it, you can see what their concerns are. And I think there's some legitimate concerns in there. I think there's some things that are maybe not quite accurate and all. One of the biggest concerns is how much of the railroad is going to get developed into heavy railroad industrial land. And there's a fear that it's inside of their neighborhood association that's going to be the whole mile on either side of the railroad to full length. And that, I went through all of the public documents, the council hearings, the railroad advisory committee meeting minutes, listened to a fair amount of the work groups and that kind of stuff, and then put together a PowerPoint for the Neighborhood Association of Clark County. And what I found is that there was a little bit of misunderstanding, or things get said and then in that wasn't necessarily a plan, but it got grabbed onto, and then it's like, okay, it's created some fear that way. So currently it looks like the plan before the council is basically for the FRDU, which is the freight rail dependent use area, is centered in Brush Prairie area, mostly to the west of 117th, a little bit to the east. And then at the end at Salachi Prairie, there's the old wood lumber mill up there, and there's potential gravel mining issues or site up there. And so those are the kind of the two areas that currently are in the FRDU plan. There is some push by some people to expand that. And so obviously there's concern by the Neighborhood Association, Greater Brush Prairie, about that. So the letter that they sent out, you can see that they've asked neighborhoods to consider it, and to, if you support it, to then sign on to it, or not, or modify to whatever you think is appropriate, if anything. So I want to open up the discussion. What do you think about this topic? Just a second.
Well, question, is there a mining overlay on the site at the north end?
There is.
Oh, he's already done.
Oh,
No, he's already done.
I am 95% sure there is a overlay up there.
Well, I hate to do this, but for those of us who really aren't familiar with the set of issues that are presented by the Gillette Railroad, could you just sum them up, or maybe you have, but I'm just not sure what's at stake.
Okay. So one of the biggest issues that they have is that the railroad's been in there since the early 1900s, off and on, different uses, heavy uses, no uses, and all. And in the meantime, people have built houses within 50 feet of the railroad, and some nice houses too, and all. And so there's concern with the Ohio train derailment and issues that way. There's concerns about a full-blown railroad near housing and all. So obviously that's mostly the people that are living right there.
I got it.
So is it an active freight railroad now?
So it's active in two ways. One is to Battleground. So it does go through Brush Prairie, but it's only about one train a day, or not a day, one train or two trains a week right now. So it's pretty small. And then there's the excursion train up at the northern end that does the Christmas trees and that kind of stuff. And in between right now, there's not a lot that happens. So what they're talking though is with that gravel pit on the end, and if we ever do build a third bridge or other kinds of things, we need gravel, and that is kind of a site for that. So then they would be bringing a few trains a day, maybe up as many as 10. We'll just say that, depending on how many cars you have, right? So we'll just say more trains per day coming through at that point. The thing is that our rail is limited to, I believe it's 10 miles an hour. Okay, because the gauge that it is and all. If they're doing some upgrades, and I think that will limit it to 15 miles an hour. So we're talking fairly slow speeds.
I've enjoyed all your
on that.
questions.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead and keep. Oh,
He's got a mute. You're good.
You're good.
You're good.
Who's the carrier?
It is PVJR, Portland Vancouver Junction Railroad, which is owned by Eric Temple, who is doing most of that. Now, he's the leaseholder of it. Clark County actually owns the railroad. So they leased it to him, and he's subleased the northern portion to the other one, I forget, BYX or something like that. BGYX, Battleground, yeah.
I read the letter a while ago.
Yeah.
What are they asking from us?
So what they're asking is, hey, they'd love to just have the PNA sign on to it and send it on. I'm a little uncomfortable with it as is.
What's their ask? I mean,
They're asking that this gets sent on to the counselors.
and but this, clearly they're in
Yeah.
a position of, so are they saying, I guess I'm curious what their action step is.
So, the NAC committee would urge the counselors to reevaluate the decision not to have an economic study completed to assess the financial viability of the railroad, which I listened to the last council meeting, and Councilor Young brought it up and suggested it. And it was voted down, but with the comments that we don't know what can be done with it yet, so an economic study is just a little premature. We need to get some questions answered about whether sewer can be extended out of the urban growth area, which by our CW, it cannot be. And so it's very likely that that would prevent a lot of what people want to do for expanding it that 1 mile, the full length of the railroad. That would shut that down. So the ask for the economic study was there, but it was delayed. And I think it was delayed rightfully because those questions need to be answered for sure. So that's one. Develop emergency response plans in partnership with emergency service providers in each area, and of course, consider the environmental impact of implementation of current proposals. In response to concerns expressed to NAC by Clark County residents, several of our member neighborhood associations, we oppose the current iteration of the FRDU and the continuation of the current railroad lease. Implementation imposes too heavy a cost of the quality of life for residents of Clark County. So that's a pretty heavy ask, and that's where I think it's a little premature still.
Did they also ask for a voting member on the?
Oh, they did ask for voting member on the Railroad Advisory Committee, which I think is a legitimate ask for that. That's definitely legit. So it's not that the letter is completely, wrong. I think it's just goes a little bit too far in a couple of places. That's my take. But again, I'm just me, and this is your organization. Any other comments on that or questions?
You're coming in straight at 10 minutes, so that was perfect.
Nice.
We're proud of ourselves.
If only we had Phil here.
Maybe that's why we're.
Yeah, it does help. There's lots of questions there. Merely, anything else question-wise on the online people at all?
There's nothing on the chat right now.
Yeah, okay, great. Oh, yeah, you can have that. Cool. All right, so if there's no questions on the railroad issue, I'm not hearing an overwhelming response to let's sign on to this.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Why are we addressing it? Does it go through the neighborhood here or,
No, it does not, but
because it's a county issue or what?
yeah, it's a county issue, and just like, Camp Bonneville is wholly within our neighborhood, but it affects the whole county as well.
So are we reaching out to people from Brush Prairie to come and help us with that?
We can invite them in to talk about that, or for Camp Bonneville, you mean?
Well, yeah, it just seems like it's
Yeah.
kind of like their problem, not necessarily ours.
And I want to be, yes, but I want to be cognizant that it is a county issue because it does go more than just through their neighborhood. It goes through about 3 or 4 neighborhoods, I believe. It does not go through ours, but it's still, you know, it's a county.
I just have a hard time having sympathy for people
Yeah.
that build next to a railroad and then they worry about
Yeah.
it.
I hear you there. So here, and that is yeah. So the railroad crossing, if you think about I think it's 503, which is 117th Avenue, there's a railroad crossing there. If you have a 100-car train going at 10 miles an hour, you're going to be backed up for 20 minutes. Yeah, so it does have an impact on everyone. They asked if we would consider it. I wanted to honor that because I don't want to speak for all of you, but I did a lot of research on it. And there's some biggest concerns I see is the leaseholder is a little bit doing some kind of janky stuff. And if that was off the table, this would be a whole lot better situation. But it's not, and so there's environmental issues that are going on, and DOE is involved, and there's stop order things and stuff like that. It's not because of the county, it's because of the operator. So, yeah. Okay, all right. I think the other thing we have is just open discussion. So, any issues in the neighborhood that you want to bring up? Anything you want to discuss or ask? We're here to listen.
I know one of the last meetings, a lot of people were talking about intersections and upgrades and what the county is proposing for that type of program. Is there any upgrades or anything you're trying to do?
So I did look at I think it's their 15-year plan on transportation, and that is online on the county website, and they have the projects listed in order. You all know that the roundabout at 182nd and 4th Plain got bumped up, and so that got taken care of. There are no other projects in our area. We've asked for something at 199th and 4th Plain. That's a pretty bad intersection as well. That has not made the top 25 yet. So nothing is likely to happen there for quite a while. But we can keep bringing that up and letting people know as they're putting more houses over Prune Hill, that intersection is going to get worse and worse. So a lot of focus right now is on 179th Street area. So that's taken a lot of efforts.
And that could be something that we bring Public Works out here to talk to you all about, is the 15-year transportation plan and where your projects are on it. And then have you have the ability to write into your counselors about how you aren't happy that you're number 25 and you want to be number 54321.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna steer the open discussion
Yep.
to who are we trying to get in for that next meeting? Who's the most important people to talk to? It seems like infrastructure and fire safety, I would say, are the two.
And our sheriff again, because that
Yes,
was a lot. Yes. Yeah. So fire safety is obviously coming up here in a few months with fire season and all too. So, okay.
Okay.
DNR,
Is that possible?
we can work on it.
Oh, we did 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can work on it. We may not make it the next meeting.
Sure.
We may take another one, but any other topics that people want to get speakers for? Okay, the next question is, do we want to go 2 months out? What's this, February, so March, April timeframe or April-May timeframe? We've obviously got to work schedule with the church. So April, May, if I worked with someone on that. Okay, May. Okay. Nothing else. All right, well, we will hang around for a little bit till the last people leave. Oh,
Hold on,
barely,
hold on.
barely. Oh, yeah.
Oh, we got a couple things there in the chat.
Shirley, is there a way you could get copies of the comments, the online commentary? If you can do it again?
I'm not sure if I can print that out or not. I'm supposed to be able to, but I haven't been able to figure out how to extract it from the Zoom, but we'll try. Since it's up on the screen, I think it might show on the recording.
It should.
Okay, it should show on the recording. SR 500-503 project. I don't know if we have any updates on that. I can check in with Public Works on that. May is good. Let me make sure there isn't another another comment up above this. Thank you to the Langleys for moving back their arborvitaes at corner of 199th and 58. I don't know where that's at, but thanks, Langleys. Okay, so that's all of those. So update from the sheriff's office. I did know just a couple things. I was sharing it at the very start of the meeting. Deputy Kinnison was way out in Washougal area when he got in the accident where he lost his leg. We were just given information that he passed his SWAT exam. He is back on the SWAT team. He passed his SWAT exam with his prosthetic leg on, and so he is back on the SWAT team. We also just got some information out about the new dogs that have been brought in. They got 3 new canine units for the sheriff's department. I got pictures of them and their handlers. I'll send those to your email so that you can send them out to the group. And then the reason why the sheriff's office is not here tonight is because it's their awards ceremony night this evening. And also the officer involved shooting that just occurred, they are going to be doing their first release with the body cams. So within the next week to 10 days, I'm not exactly sure how long it takes them to compile all of that video, and then they have to do redaction and they have to do a special process with it. I'm not sure all of what's involved, but they're working with all of that process. And so there will be a news release with the videos. If you're interested in seeing what that is, that will be coming out in a short period of time. And then there's going to be an event. Kirk has it. There's going to be an event for the senior tax exemption.
Yeah, that's the property tax exemption. If you're not familiar with that, low income elderly people can get a 50% or 75%, 35, 50, 70% reductions in their property tax bill. And the levels are fairly reasonably high. A lot of people can qualify for that. And that's an exemption. So it's a good thing to do. So February 29th and March 1st events that you can learn about more. There's obviously more information about it on the county website as well. So if you know anyone that's struggling with their taxes and especially if they're elderly, fixed incomes and stuff, that can work really well to help them stay in the house. So take a look at that. All right, anything else? Last minute? Going. Thank you all for attending. Please share with friends the emails that we send out so that they have it here as well.
We go. Good meeting.
Like pieces, when you go left, before you go down like to Hamas, it's on the right side.
Okay. Oh, okay. I'll have to watch.
Yeah, it's when you go left.